It's good to see everybody back in MID. It's been a while already, so I'm going to be sharing with you guys some tips on wide-angle photography. So if that's your things, please fill up the seats. Don't worry, don't be shy. It's free. I have very little time on stage, in fact, just slightly under half an hour. So I'm going to bulldoze through this as fast as I can, and I'll try to cover as much topics as I can. Now, first of all, wide-angle photography. I'll be sharing with you not theories, not settings and formulas, but rather I'll be sharing with you guys a technique. Now, so if it's a technique, means it can be applied to a lot of things, right? So it doesn't matter the brand of the camera that you use, it doesn't matter about the strobes or the housing that you use, because it's a technique. So what I want you to pay attention to is the technique in which you can apply it to your wide-angle photography. So let's get to it. All right. First of all, you want to talk about your lens, right? Obviously, anything more than a 35 mm we will consider as a wide angle. But there's a lot of wide angle lenses, right? So which one is the one you should use? Now, I predominantly use a fisheye. It's just me. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it, but it's my style. And I use the fisheye for a very good reason. So a fisheye, as you can see, it's extremely wide. It covers an angle of 100 to 160, or sometimes even more. So when you look at something like this is taken with a fisheye. Obviously, there's a problem because everything is warped, right? It's a lot of curves and all, and distortion. And it almost doesn't have a purpose on land, to be honest, because everything is bent. But surprisingly, it works very well underwater, because in the underwater world, you don't have straight lines as a reference. So a lot of the times you get away with it because you don't have a reference point of how straight things are supposed to be. Now, the good thing is about the fisheye then. Why? Why the fisheye? Because it helps you get really close. Now, I know it sounds a bit strange. Why would you get close with a fisheye? Picture this. When it's such a wide angle, a person as tall as me can easily fit in the frame, even if you are this far away, right? And by doing that, what you actually achieve is you reduce the volume of water that is between you and your subject, right? So you can light things very differently, because if your angle is not wide enough, you have to pull back to get the whole sea fan. And when you're back, the angle of your light is different. But when you're close, you can do a lot of things with your light, right? Things like this. Now, this girl is no further than from me to this podium, right? She's that close. And it helps to tell a story, because that's the whole idea of wide angle, isn't it? You need to show the background, the environment in which the model or the subject is at, things like that, right? You can see her legs are a little bit shorter because of the wide angle thing, but it doesn't matter because it tells the story. Right? This is obviously in Palau some years back. And this, now this is not super visibility, guys. This is just because the wide angle is so wide that it takes on so much of the scene, it feels like you're looking at a very vast space, when in actual fact you are really close. So if you look at the diver, he's a little bit soft, because the visibility in actual fact wasn't great. So, but because of the fisheye, you get away with a lot of things like that, right? And this, when you do have good visibility, then you can achieve some pretty cool stuff. There's no magical special settings, just good white balance. So then we come to the art of light, which is the technique that I've been talking to you guys about before. So again, this is not a formula. It is just a mindset, a principle that you can use to apply to your kind of photography. And the three things that I want to remind you guys over and over again are these, right? Contrast, separation, and negative space. We'll talk about it one at a time. Let's talk about contrast, right? Now, what is contrast? It's basically textures and shadows, the difference between the dark spots, okay, and the highlights of your picture. Everything in between is a contrast. Now, for example, this is how a lot of people would shoot, say, for example, a wide-angle stuff, even macro, whatever, right? Again, I'm not saying that it's wrong, right? I'm just saying it's different from how I do it. And what you end up having, you can, okay, let's go back again. Sorry. Hold on, huh? First world problem, yeah? All right. So what you want to do is actually move the strobes a bit more to the sides. Okay, right. Hold on. Okay, with this, right, what you will end up getting, hold on a second. Okay, you know that the first picture I showed you just now with the strokes really close, this is what you probably end up with. Now, it's not a bad picture. Obviously, it's just a toy to give you an example. But what you want to try is instead to just move the strokes from here to here, right, just further out. And what you will achieve, and at the same time bring it closer. Now, why can we bring it closer? Because of the fish eye, right? Before that, you had to be wide enough, because your wide angle is not that wide, so you got to pull back to get the entire frame. But now you can go a little bit closer because of the fish eye. So bring the strokes far apart, go a little bit closer, and what you end up with is something like this. Now, to the untrained eye, it might look very similar, but if I put it side by side, you can tell the difference, right? These has all the textures of the gills, right? You can see that it's three-dimensional because it has shadows and it has highlights. So it looks solid. This is flat, okay? So just to give you an example, this is a picture of me, right? Shot by one of my friends. We were in the Solomon Islands, but if you were to notice how far away my strobes are, right? It's almost as wide as I am tall, right? So that's how far my strobe goes. And so, why are textures so important? Let me give you another example. Now, again, this is a toy, nudie blank on a piece of wood, shot like that, okay? But again, just move the strobes to the sides a little bit, and immediately you come up with a lot of texture. It's exactly the same picture, yeah, same position. Camera hasn't moved. The only thing that has moved are the strobes, the position of the strobes. So let's go back. You can see the difference is very dramatic. And this is what we mean by textures. A lot of people don't pay attention to it. We always light up the scene for the purpose of illuminating, but we're not creating any drama, right? So, textures and shadows, let's see how we apply this concept, right? So this is a decent picture, but if you ask me, it's a little bit too direct, the strokes, yeah? So, same kind of concept, but slightly different. You can see the sponge, the soft coral has a little bit more definition. It has a little more contrast. And then you see on the sides, right, the highlights and the shadows in the middle. That gives it a lot of depth. So it makes it more three-dimensional. Again, a barrel sponge. But the same kind of sponge, if you light it a little bit different, can be very special. And these are just examples that I'm showing you that, you know, this in itself is already a nice picture, but you can make it better. With this, yep. So the concept is pretty much the same as how you apply it, right? And if you must know, this feather star, I mean the feather star is only this big, right? So in actual fact, when we shot this picture, the feather star is maybe half a feet away from the port. That's how close it is, and then the strobes are on the sides. And you actually tilt it in, because now the subject is so much closer, you don't want to aim it out, so you actually tilt it in. Right, so the next thing is separation. Now, I assure you a lot of folks don't pay a lot of attention to separation. Now, as the name suggests, separation is how you separate your subject from the background. Now, an image of this diver, you know, as an example, you can see that her body is against the background. Yep, you can see there's a diver, but she doesn't stand out any more than everything else. But same setting, same diver, but if you angle it a little bit, you put her against a negative space, a blank space. Then all of a sudden she's separated clearly, right? Like this. There are two forms of separation here, because number one, of course, the diver against the blue. The second thing is the soft coral against a black. So can you imagine if the background was just as busy, suddenly that coral doesn't stand up as much. So think about the separation and how you can key out the shape of your subject, right? These are all separation. That's the reason why simple shots like that kind of works. Diver is separated, the three sharks are obviously away from each other, and something even as simple as that, right? It's got nothing to it, just sharks nearer to the surface. Okay, it could be a few sharks, it could be 100 sharks, 200 sharks, 1,000 sharks, right? But the key thing that made it all work is separation. This is done in Fakarawa, in French Polynesia, some years back. And then the last thing is negative space and environment. That is also another one. See, it's very close to separation, but it works hand in hand, right? So the negative space, again, as the name suggests, is an area in a picture that is not your main subject. They're not useless space. You can use them. It doesn't mean you have to go as close as possible for every single shot. This works both for wide angle and macro. Sometimes it is interesting if you frame your subject with a bit of his background, right? Because it shows the environment in which the animal lives in. It helps to create a more interesting composition. For example, right? So obviously what makes this shot interesting is cute turtle, but it's the background. All this you see here are negative space. Anything that is not your subject are negative space. It's not put dead center. He's a little bit framed off bottom, slightly to the right, just to give that motion. Because it makes perfect sense, right? If you want to have the feel of motion that is going this way, you want to frame it to the right, so that it feels like it has room to move to the left. It's just a basic cinematography, basic framing and composition. And this, the entire picture is only one small diver in such a vast blue. This is shot in Shiratoko in Hokkaido, I think 12 years or something ago. But it's so simple. There's nothing technically superior about it. You just shot it, but it's just the way you frame it and how you tell the story. So you remember, there's a few things happening here. You have negative space, you have separation because the diver is silhouetted against the background, right? So it explains what it is at one glance, right? And this is one of my personal favorite, right? A crocodile is something that has evolved for millions of years, predating the dinosaurs, and it's evolved to camouflage itself. So sometimes, while it's easy to think, let's get as close as we possibly can to the crocodile, but I feel that sometimes if you just pull back once a while and look at the environment and how well evolved this animal is to adapt to its environment, makes for a really, really nice picture. So, of course, this is one of my personal favorite because it's a physical thing that you have to remember to do, right? So I actually deliberately did this way. Of course, when we talk about that curve, right, that we've been looking at, this curvature here, of course it adds to the dynamic look of this photo, but at the same time, it is nothing special. It is a optical effect called the snail's law or snail's window. And basically, when you have a fish eye, so here's another reason why you want to use the fish eye. When you're very near to a surface, it refracts and reflects the water in such a way that creates this curve. It's extremely complicated. You can Google it. It's a whole bunch of science, but it doesn't matter. It looks really cool, right? Again, this one has no special technique. There's nothing fantastic. Just aim and shoot. But, it turns out like that because of the fish eye. And that's what you can use it for. So everything you see in this picture is everything we just spoke about, right? The lighting is from the sides, making it extremely three-dimensional. It has a nice curve on the top, negative space, and separation. And the snail's angle gives this almost like an outer space shot, if you will, of this cuttlefish. And here's an example of something that didn't work. Like the snail's window is there, right? The framing is there, but the flash didn't go off. That's how you balance the flash, but when it does go off, it works. All right? So there's no such thing as a right exposure, only the image that you want to take. Because for every single picture that I've just shown you, if you were to look at the histogram of this picture, it would all be underexposed. The camera will figure out that it is underexposed. It doesn't understand what you want to do, right? So there are no such thing as a right exposure, only the image that you want to take, right? This is underexposed. If you were to look at it in the histogram, it's underexposed. If you look at the settings, I don't know if you guys can see, right? It's on the fish eye, 8:15. And it's a 250th of a second f9. In the morning, if you guys know Sipadan, these guys are the early morning rush hour, right? You see them all the time. So it's dark, but it works, right? And how to make a little bit darker pictures. These are all extra stuff that I want to share with you. This is the raw files, Okay, so you can see that there are no adjustments yet. This is how we shot it, already dark. But once you darken a little bit, right, you can see the contrast. Brightness goes down a little bit. Clarity goes up, saturation goes up, but it works. Is it underexposed? In theory, yes. If you look at the histogram, yes, it's underexposed, but it works, right? So with all that I've shared with you, remember, go out there and tell stories. That's what it's all about, yeah? Do crazy stuff, right? Think about how you want to shoot it. This is in Mexico. This skull is 400 years old. It's a Mayan skull, and it's deep in one of the cenotes. But we had the plan, the idea of shooting it like that. So to give something wide angle close-ups. So you have something to focus on, you have somebody in the background, full of negative space and separation for both subject and the background, right? Tell a little story. This xenon crab is no bigger than this. But you can get one of those compact dome pots, right? The really small dome pots that can allow you to get really, really close to your subject, right? And simple things like this yellowtail. I mean, we see these guys all the time on the reef, but sometimes when they swim by in a right angle, and because your fish eye creates this distortion, and it works, right? This is a crab I shot this in Tioman Island, believe it or not. If you guys go to Paya Beach, there's a small little stream in the back, freshwater runoff. So we were in there feeding mosquitoes. This was done 20 years ago. I think if the crab had maybe a few generations or great-grandchildren already by now, huh? So, but this is done in a small little freshwater stream, and we were just putting the camera in the water, but pushing it really close to the crab. And of course, in Palau, the jellyfish lake. But again, we are telling stories, guys. Simple like that. No nonsense, no strobes. Separation, negative space, and contrast, right? If you guys been to the Maldives, you know they come at night when the lights are on. And this is back in Shirotoko, again, simple stuff, but we are all telling stories of the environment. And this is a Japanese free diver. She's wearing 7 mils in -1 for 20 minutes. Japanese, different. Yeah. And you see, a slight tilt in the angle. This is exactly the same shoot, right? But you just flip it around. And when you look at it for half a second, you go like, what the heck is going on here? Right? But it's just a matter of perspective. It's just about how you present your images to your viewers. And just by simply flipping it around, it makes you think. And that's how you engage audiences, right? You make them think and make them, You tell a story. And then you tell a story of how you told that story, right? Not very happy. Yeah? And so when some of the guys are asking, you shot the crocodile so far because you don't dare to get close to the crocodile. Oh, no, we got really close to the crocodile. This is a fish eye. So it's almost bouncing off his nose. And then you tell a story, and then you take a picture to tell the story of that story. And if that's not enough, then we take another picture of that one. And you can see here in this shot, all the smart people are standing there looking at the crocodile, drinking beer. The only stupid one is in the water taking this photo, right? And this is the stupid guy. So, so explore and discover your own style. Take it as a technique. The next time you go around, think about these 3 things: separation, negative space, and contrast. And I'd like to thank my sponsor. That's all the time I have with you, who helped me do all the stuff that I do. Thank you very much. I know it's a bit too fast, but very good. So if you guys have any question, I have a few minutes. You can ask me, and I'll get off the stage for the next guy. Thank you, guys.